I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. Everything I do so instinctive.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, degenerate sleuths of the night. We gather to boldly go where others have refused. Welcome to the DT show, you salty mofos.
A man accused of killing 4 college students is behind bars, and he has ties to northeastern and central Pennsylvania. State police say 28-year-old Brian Koberger was arrested this morning at a home in Chestnut Hill Township.
I can't find any case law that would support that idea. That somehow a warrant would be needed for DNA left at a crime scene.
We are expecting to learn more about the allegations against the girlfriend of a Boston police officer who was found unresponsive in the snow Saturday morning. I-Team sources say Karen Reed was in a relationship with John O'Keefe. She's facing charges including motor vehicle homicide and manslaughter.
So, the Commonwealth just provided the court with information that causes me grave concern. The implications of that information may have profound effects on this defense and defense counsel.
So, get your popcorn ready and your choice of drink. Get your butt on your seat. Like, comment, and subscribe for a treat. Here we go. It's time for the show. The Drunk Turkey Show.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the DT Show. I'm Daniel. Good to see everybody tonight. Hope you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, ring that notification bell. You guys know what to do. Today, we're getting back into the Jack and Lilly case. And, man, there's been a lot that's gone on since the last time we spoke. Now, last time we spoke was on a members only live. If you guys haven't caught the member only live, I am going to be airing out the member only lives on Spotify the day after we air them. So if you're not a member, you can catch it on Spotify for free. There's some ads on there. If you're a member, you can always watch the replay there, or you can be on the member lives. I'm going to try to do those on every Sunday at some point throughout the day. Try to do a member live, and so you can be a member and support the channel that way, and be great, and we appreciate that. I think memberships start at 99 cents a month, so not too much. And you know, if that's not in the cards and you want to be a part of it, you won't be obviously a part of the live show, but you'll be able to see it and catch it on Spotify for free. Just check out the Drunk Turkey Show on Spotify. And so before we get into today's conversation and today's topic, as I'm sure you guys probably already see in the that's pinned in the comment section, one of our amazing mods, Chloe, she had a family member pass away suddenly, and you know, to show our support to her, and you know, our thoughts and our prayers go out to her and her family. And she has a GoFundMe, and they have a goal of $30,000 to raise. They're at about 19,000. 53 days until the service, January 31st, 2026. He passed away suddenly, and so and unexpectedly, and you know, to help out one of our mods, friends, and subscribers, and everything in between, family members, you know, to help her out in her need for her family. If you guys don't mind any donations that you would have sent to me, just send them here to the GoFundMe. I would appreciate that, and let them know that DT Show sent you that way. Our thoughts and prayers to you, Chloe, and to your family. May your cousin rest in peace. All righty, guys. So today, what I wanted to talk about was the Jack and Lilly case, and there's a lot of information that came out. So like I mentioned before at the top of the show, we had a members only, and during that members only, we had some more information to go about a blue blanket and a sweatshirt with some kind of like leopard print on it or whatnot. And I kind of disclosed there who it belonged to. I also kind of told everybody that I'd be coming in some new information. I know the exact location of the cluster of footprints that were left out there on the pipeline. You know, up until this point, I had only known, you know, halfway up the pipeline, a third of the way, somewhere in between the two roads. I now have the GPS location of the exact point of where they were found. And it's kind of leading me to even more so what I had really thought. But we'll go into that more. And, you know, if we have time, we'll also go into this guy named Vincent Mallory. Now, I haven't seen this. I've seen, wait, let me rephrase this. I've only seen about 45 seconds of what he has to say. Now, a lot of people keep telling me I need to watch it. I need to watch it, listen to it with an open mind, listen to him. You know, apparently he's got some sort of illness and he lives in the area and he knows some information. When I turned it on, it was at the moment where he said he was making out with like a 25-year-old and how he was a lucky guy. I immediately thought this isn't worth my time and turned it off. And so I don't know what he says. And I don't know what he says outside of that. And so if we have time, we'll look into that. And it'll probably be mainly, it could be me debunking whatever it is he says. It could be me agreeing with whatever he says or somewhere in the middle. I have no idea what he says outside of he's a lucky man to be making out with a 25-year-old. And I don't know who the 25-year-old woman he was referring to when he said that. So I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I turned it off at that point and just kind of went about my business. But, you know, I've gotten continual emails about it and people asking me to look into it. And so I was like, you know what, if I have time today, you know, after we talk about everything that we're going to talk about, because I got some other information about Malaya and about Daniel. And so that I wanted to bring up as well. And, you know, so if we have time, we'll bring that up and we'll discuss that. And so first, the information about Malaya. So here recently, I had reported that I was told by actually somebody on Malaya's side of the family that Malaya was getting help. What that meant, I have no idea. I still do not know what that means. Now, we can speculate all day if that's a mental health help, if that's a drug help, if that's something in between or a combination of the two. No idea. Now, I was asked if I had heard anything else about it and if I could confirm it. I went to Daniel and I asked Daniel, hey, have you heard the possibility that Malaya was being hospitalized? He was surprised by what I was telling him. And he told me, more or less kind of confused because he was like, well, I don't know. And, you know, I asked him what happened. And he said, well, they changed their days when they meet Meadow. And so they used to meet Meadow on the same day. And I guess because she had reported him a couple of times, for one, I guess parking next to her. And another time he went and gave her the mail that she had received at the house. And she went and reported him to CPS. And so I'm assuming after those two reports, they switched their days so they wouldn't have any conflict. And so he was like, I'm not sure. We're not, you know, it's not like that anymore. So I have no idea. And then a few days later, all he told me was, I don't know much about it. I know it's, you know, whatever your source said, it sounds like they're right. And so I know a lot of people have kind of confused that information and thought that Daniel is the one that told me that information. It was not Daniel. It was actually somebody on Malaya's side of the family who told me that information. And so I'm not going to go further than that, you know, whether it's a friend of her family's, whether it's a family member, or whether it's, you know, a combination of the two, a friendly family member. I'm not going to disclose who my sources are. But from what I understand is that, yes, she was seeking help and she's been seeking help. Don't know what for. Anything beyond that would be speculation on my part. It sounds to me in the speculation like mental health type of situation. But could there be a drug aspect to it? I have no idea. If there is, like either a drug or an alcohol, because I know that there's been some rumors out there that she had been drinking and things like that. So if maybe this is perhaps something to do with drinking, you know, missing your two kids can drive a parent to do, you know, to alcohol abuse, to drug abuse and things of that nature. You know, a divorce can do that. A a breakup can do certain things as well to a person's psyche. And so missing 2 kids, although everybody kind of looks at her and says she's not acting in the right manner or acting the right way, if this is a result of that, then I mean, I wouldn't put it beyond the realm of possibility that she could have had some sort of mental breakdown or leaned on things. And then again, I have no idea what it is or what it isn't. Daniel didn't tell me. He just told me it sounds like your source is correct, but he doesn't really know himself. At least that's what he led me to believe. And then going with Daniel, I've heard a recent rumor that apparently, because I had said that Daniel had gotten injured here recently, a couple of weeks ago. I had said that on the Dr. Vona's channel when she had a live going on, and she was kind of talking about Daniel Martell and how he's not really been in the media recently. And I told him, I was like, I've talked to him recently. He hasn't been in the media. He hasn't been coming out. He hasn't been talking, mainly because, he's taking a step back. He's always under attack. And, at a certain point, people are going to push people away from talking. I mean, that's just a result. It's a result driven world, consequences, whatever you want to call it. But, you had him talking and at least coming out, and, you've pushed him away. And the other thing was he was injured. He got into and the only reason I'm saying this, because this is his business and he didn't really want this out there, but he got into another auto accident. And I've seen the pictures of the second vehicle. He got into another auto accident. And a lot of people were trying to say that he got beat up or that he was jumped or some of these other things. And that's not the case. He was involved in an auto accident out there in Nova Scotia, Canada, around the wintertime, or when it gets cold like now. There's ice conditions and rain and freezing ice conditions and stuff like that. And he's just gotten hit with unfortunate luck when it comes to those type of things. And he was apparently pretty injured, pretty bad. So he's been dealing with that. He was not like jumped or anything like that, like people are trying to say, unless somebody jumped him and then he ran outside and destroyed the car that he sent me a picture of. It really doesn't make any sense. And so I've seen the picture, I've seen the vehicle, and he's okay. Nothing life-threatening or anything like that, but a lot of bruises and maybe even some possible broken ribs type of thing. And so, he's, like I said, I've heard he's okay. He's just had a string of bad luck, but it's nothing like, what some people are saying that he got beat up. Nowhere near the case. And so those are the first 2 things when it comes to that. Second of all, let's pull this up. I want to pull this up. This is from It's Criming Shame. And this was about the blanket that I had talked about with Chrissy Travers. She is a PI that called into the show. So first and foremost, I want to preference this with, I had a call-in show where a PI called into the show and is somewhat loosely connected to the case. She was part of Please Bring Me Home. I had heard her name before through Daniel. Actually, Daniel's the one that told me about her in the past, and other folks too. Some folks from Malaya's camp had told me about who she was. So I was familiar with the name. I'd never spoken with her or anything like that before. So she called in and she was indicating that there was a blanket that was found and there was blood on it and a bunch of other things. Now, some folks really didn't understand when I posted the video that I posted here recently, which was the clip of that call-in show. The reason I posted the clip was, one, I am not really siding with her on anything with the blanket goes as far as its relevance. She tells me about the blood and stuff, and I'm like, whoa, I didn't hear that. What I heard was that they found a blanket and stuff, but it was deemed to be irrelevant. And that's what I continued to say. And then at the end of it, I asked her about the boot prints. And what was more important for me about that video was, because she was trying to implement some of Janie's family members and some other stuff too, right? And so what I was trying to do was trying to say, all right, well, how do you tie in all this information that you currently have with, the boot prints? And when I brought up the boot prints, there was some information that she wasn't aware of. And I clarified it. And then she's like, well, that kind of changes some things. And that was the entire point of the video, was to indicate this is what we got in real time. and how I was, not necessarily like going hard at her, like, oh, that's not true. That's not true. I was unaware of what she was saying for the most part. But once I started to grasp what it was that we were talking about, I started to tell her, like, no, from what I understand, it's irrelevant. And then I brought in the boot prints, where you have somebody who really thought that perhaps Daniel may have done something. And that's what my thought might be, is that they think that either Daniel, Janie, or Malaya may have done something. And the point is to show that somebody who may have had that train of thought, once presented with the full evidence, it's not so clear anymore, right? And she even said, well, that changes some things. And so that was the whole point of that video. I know it went over some folks' heads, and they thought that I was trying to post it as being real, which doesn't make any sense, because I don't believe that Daniel, Malaya, or Janie did something nefarious to the kids. If you want to argue that they were being neglectful, that they should have watched the kids, that they were maybe even potentially on drugs that morning and they were asleep, and that's why they didn't hear the kids leave, I mean, you can argue that all you want. I'm not going to argue against it, because I have no idea. I wasn't there. And that would somewhat fit some of the evidence that we have. I mean, I can't deduce that as being a possibility, right? But for me, my argument is that the kids wandered off, regardless of what situation it was. I strongly believe that the kids wandered off, and I think the boot prints and the blanket are pretty important pieces of information. And I'm going to break down here in a little bit why I believe it's also less likely that there was some sort of like accident and disposal and things of that nature. But this is the blanket that was referenced. I don't see any blood-soaked anything. And I had mentioned, and because I didn't get this image until after the call-in show, but I had told some folks that it does seem like there is some sort of substance on it. It didn't remind me of blood. It looked more like mud to me. I didn't see any blood on here, so I didn't think that's what it was. Now, this is something that she had reached out to me after the fact and sent me. And again, I have nothing against Miss Travers or anything, for her. I know she mentioned, her and Daniel don't get along. I'm not Daniel's like friend or compadre like that. Like, I am looking for the truth. I just so happen to agree that the kids wandered off and that Daniel didn't do anything nefarious, based on what the RCMP have said and based on what the RCMP have put out forth, not based on what anything Daniel has said or Malaya has said. Like, I believe that Malaya also didn't do anything nefarious, and I've never spoken to her personally. I've spoken to people in her camp, people close to her, but not her personally. And if she don't talk to me, which I asked her once, one of her friends, if she would talk to me, and the answer was no. I haven't asked again, and that doesn't change my opinion. Just because somebody wants to talk to me or doesn't want to talk to me is not going to change my opinion or what I'm putting out there as far as content. Because in the end, my goal is to be just accurate, put out accurate information, not to favor one side or the other, because the truth doesn't favor one side or the other. It favors itself. And that's what I'm trying to put out. So this is what Chrissy Travers sent to me. Evidence submissions. This is the officer that collected the evidence. According to RCMP, they do not have a location at this time. Not familiar with what evidence they're talking about. This is proof police were leaving the area after the evidence collection. I'm guessing this is the blanket and this sock. So this goes on to say this is a child's sock found on Gairloch Brooks Falls, which is just across the road from St. Andrew's Church. The trail on the way is where the other items were found, which was between two graveyards. And then here's a blue cheetah print sweater wrapped in a blue blanket, blue-gray floor mat. This item was found bundled up and thrown over some dirt piles. I assume this thing right here is the blood that she was referring to. Now, I didn't see this before. I'll be honest with you. I was just looking at the other image that was sent to me. I haven't really looked at this one that much. That could be. I mean, that looks more like blood than the other image I was looking at. It also could be a lot of things. It could be oil, could be soot, it could be a number of things. I don't think that's mud. I don't think that part is mud. And she has something circled here. I mean, it looks reddish right here, but I mean, that could just be the material. There could be a lot of things. I'm not And here, I'm not sure what she's circling. I'm assuming right here. There does seem to be some sort of discoloration here, but not something that looks blood or blood soaked by any means. And this is what the possible version of the sweater was that was located. It was found on Etsy. Okay, and then I'm not sure. So this is a post about the missing items. Courtroom documents failed to mention key pieces of evidence found during the search, including a child's sock and bloody underwear. Did Royal Canadian Mounted Police in Nova Scotia lose this? It was found by someone searching for Jack and Lilly. I'm not sure what they're talking about. Everything that I have read or seen has always said that what they found during that Please Bring Me Home search was irrelevant. So even if they found something maybe perhaps with blood on it, it possibly was. I know that they took Jack and Lily's DNA through, I think they took their toothbrushes or something to that nature. And so they have that there, so they can easily test it pretty quickly. It could be hot sauce, I mean, it could be a lot of things. This goes on to say, this is a clip from a statement we received. Okay, we blank took over from blank. I spoke with him by phone over an hour. He asked me to recount everything I had previously gone over with. Also informed him about the incident I witnessed on May 2nd involving a silver Honda Civic and another vehicle on Lansdowne Road near the location where the pink shirt had been found. In my opinion, the shirt appeared to be placed deliberately in a tree. Although Blank seemed interested, he never followed up or asked me to identify the individuals. Okay, around this time, I connected with a private investigator, Chrissy Travers, and informed we identified a man involved as Blank McKenzie and believed the young girl present was Blank Jurdy. Based on the totality of evidence, I do not believe RCMP genuinely lost the, I don't know. And so, yeah, I have no idea about this statement here. Never heard about any of this before, so take that for what it is. Now, this is Chrissy Travers, and she says, this is a post. Hello, yes, I am real. Yes, I absolutely did say bloody sweater on the fly. It was a minor mistake that I corrected several times after. I also did release that photo, and it was completely appropriate to share. Just like many other items, our team has responsibility released in the past. And you know what? Mission accomplished. The reaction to the photo confirmed what needed to be confirmed. Someone out there is planting evidence. That discovery alone published this case forward in a significant way. Now, I don't know who's planting evidence, but apparently the blanket and the sweater belonged to Bradley Wong, a neighbor that lived close. If his name sounds familiar, this is the same Bradley Wong that made some false reports about hearing or seeing Daniel. And what he said was that he saw some headlights in the early morning hours. Well, there's some cameras in the area off of Camp Gorda campground, and then some others near Lansdowne Station Road. Now, they don't show the intersection per se. They don't show Daniel's house per se. But the issue is that Brad Wong said that he saw the vehicle with the lights on, with the headlights on. And so when you go and you look at the Camp Lorda grounds truck, their cameras, they may not show Daniel's home per se, but you can see the trees that would have been lit up by the headlights that Brad Wong said that he saw that night. And they're visible. In fact, RCMP went out and disputed, and that was the term that was used, disputed Bradley Wong and Justin Smith's statements. And when you read the RCMP docs, the weird thing about it is that Brad Wong went up to the RCMP about a week after the disappearance, or RCMP went up to him, one or the other. And this is when he gave that information. He didn't want to write it down. He didn't want to give a statement. He said he was willing to talk, but not cooperate. So he was being somewhat uncooperative. And he told them that he had heard or seen a car that was going around that night. A week after that, he goes up to Justin Smith's house. And right before Justin Smith is to talk to law enforcement, he tells Justin Smith that the car that was out that night was Daniel's. And Justin Smith goes out and tells the RCMP that Brad Wong had came over and told him that the vehicle that he had seen was Daniel's vehicle, and the one that he was hearing that night was supposedly Daniel's. To me, it sounds like he's trying to convince or manipulate Justin to go in there and tell the RCMP what he heard. Right. And then the weird thing is, like, Bradley Wong doesn't tell the RCMP that it was Daniel. He tells Justin Smith this. And so this is all in the RCMP documents. And then once that was all redacted. Now, I had told everybody that the reason why I felt there was so many redactions is because there was probably things in there that were found to be untrue, right? People that made accusations. And I've noticed here in this case that a lot of people like to stick to the accusation, not to the result of the investigation. It's weird. Like, for instance, there's this accusations across the board, but nobody takes into consideration the investigation into the accusations and then the result of those investigations, such as the extensive background check or extensive look into Daniel and to Malaya. They looked into their financial records, their GPS locations. They took multiple statements, took lie detector tests, whole 9 yards. And so there was a result of that, and in the RCMP documents, they say, we're doing all this with the purpose to eliminate her as a suspect, talking about Malaya. And then at the end of it, when it talks about the result of everything, it says the entire purpose of our investigation was to determine if there was a criminal offense occurred, and we were not able to do so. So, a lot of people say, well, they don't flat out say they clear them. And I agree, but I mean, it would be equivalent to me saying, hey, I'm going to take these eggs, I'm going to take this cake mix, I'm going to mix it together, throw some milk in it, beat it up, whatever, put it in the oven for 20 to 35 minutes, like the box says. And then when it comes out, I should get a cake. And then if I come back and say, hey, I was successful with this fluffy goodiness, I never said it was a cake, so it must not be a cake. That's kind of what I'm hearing or what I'm getting when people say, oh, they weren't cleared, they weren't this. I mean, the RCMP is literally coming out saying, this is what our goal is. This is what our objective is. This is what we're trying to do. This is how we investigated to make that determination. And here are your results. And it's not me saying it, guys. I know a lot of you guys get mad and say, oh, I believe Daniel, or oh, I believe Malaya. I'm doing this for clicks and views. It's not me saying it. It's the RCMP saying it. I'm just repeating and regurgitating what they're putting out there. I mean, if you can't handle the truth, I'm sorry, but that's what is out there. And so, you can take it, you can leave it, you can continue to believe the accusation and not the result of the investigation all you want. But in the end of the day, you're going to continue to argue all these things that are never going to be proven because they didn't happen, because this was thoroughly investigated. Like, one of the things that I think would have been very easy to determine whether or not Daniel and Malaya committed some sort of crime or if they tried to hide the bodies. So when Daniel left, he left in a Nissan Pathfinder. It was a 2017, and it was one of the luxury models. It had GPS and all the bells and whistles. And so although he took off without his cell phone, because that's what he told me, he took off without his cell phone. When he arrived home, and law enforcement was pulling up. So Malaya had already called 911 while he was gone. And we know by the documents that was about 27 minutes. And so we should be able to determine, once we grab Malaya's vehicle that has GPS, that has all these bells and whistles with an ECU, we can determine a few things. We can determine by key cycles how often that vehicle was turned on and turned off. So we can determine whether or not, if that vehicle was turned on at 10 a.m. and he took off at the time that he said he took off, or if he took off at a lot later of a time or a lot earlier of a time, which would be more interesting. Now, to determine how long he was on that roadway, you have the key cycles, you have him when he returns, you have GPS that's going to show a couple things. And so if it only shows that vehicle was out for a few minutes, well, we would have to believe that Daniel would have had to have parked the car somewhere down the road, planted the blanket, then gone out into the middle of nowhere somewhere, got out the vehicle, traveled somewhere, hid the bodies, traveled back, got in the car, and then made it back within a 30-minute time frame from the time that Malaya called 911 to the time he pulled back up 27 minutes later. If he did something like that, what you have there is you have the movement of the vehicle, where it's parked, and you have a time frame. That time frame, you have to consider that Daniel would have had to have gotten out of the car, traversed somewhere through the dense woods, traversed back, and you also have to account for him disclosing or hiding the bodies, and have to do that all within a time frame of 27 minutes. It would not be very difficult to figure out if he left earlier. And if he's lying and if he's leaving earlier and he had gotten in the car at 9 o'clock instead of 10:30 or 10 o'clock, then this would be a criminal investigation. If they believe that the blanket was planted, this would be a criminal investigation. This would not be a missing persons investigation. So if we look at what law enforcement are doing in this case and where they're focusing or how they're describing what the case would be, and you're looking at the evidence and you're looking at the investigation they've done into the parents, you can kind of deduce some things at this point. And you can deduce at this point that they believe that the kids wandered off. Now, again, as I mentioned at the top of the show, if you want to argue that they wandered off and the parents should be blamed because they were neglectful, there was a parent that was just arrested here in San Antonio, Texas, because their 3 or 4 year old got out in the middle of the night, was seen on cameras, and law enforcement went out there. She was soiled, dirty. She'd been missing for like 4 or 5 hours. This happened like at 4 or 5 in the morning. They found the parents. They arrested the mom. The grandma went to the school to try to tell the other kids not to talk to CPS because they were going to come talk to CPS, and they arrested the grandma and they arrested them both for neglect. If you want to say that they should be arrested for something like that, I ain't going to stand in front of you and debate you and say, no, they shouldn't. I think that you can't watch your kids 24/7, but I do understand that Jack had gone out before. He gone through a fence and he went through a scrap yard and through a schoolyard, almost got to the woods at 2 years old, a tremendous walk for a 2-year-old. And so, should Malaya and Daniel have known, given the history, that they had kids that could have wandered off, and, are they more responsible of, making sure that the kids didn't get out of the house? I mean, if you want to argue that, more power to you. I'm not going to disagree with you. You know what I'm saying? So, but when it comes to like a nefarious act or an accident that occurred in the middle of the night and they had to go do something, I just don't think the evidence is there for that. I just don't. All right, let's see. Chrissy goes on to say in this post, our team has contributed to a great deal of valuable information throughout this investigation. We don't broadcast every success, and we certainly don't chase credit. But if you ask some of the YouTubers covering the case, they can tell you exactly where many of the leads originated. Moving forward, our team will no longer be sharing any of our findings publicly with anyone outside of our own investigative circle. My only focus on my team's focus was finding Jack and Lilly and bring them home. If you need to contact us, you can reach our team directly at 902-600-9431. I'm willing to collect your tip as long as you've reported it to the RCMP and Crime Stoppers first. Please be patient if there are any delays in our replies. We are working hard to address every message and every piece of information as quickly as responsible as we can. Thank you for your continued efforts. Keep going. We are getting closer every single day. So, I don't know. Okay. Now let's go to what Wong said, because they have a clip of him saying that this belongs to him.
So I'll just play that.
Brad Wong was showing a picture from sunny Austin on December 6th, 2025 at 9:40 p.m. of a blue blanket and sweater, which both belonged to my daughter. We were getting out the house and thought it wouldn't be suitable to be passed down, so it ended up in the burning pile, where they only take 4 bags on garbage day.
Okay. Did you?
So he says that this ended up in the burning pile because they only take 4 pieces of garbage, a day or a week or whatever the case may be. It don't look burnt to me. Maybe he just recently threw it in there. I know that Sonny kind of argues that maybe perhaps somebody from Please Bring Me Home was on his property and they took it and they planted it somewhere else. Maybe, I don't think so. But, I don't understand what the motive would be behind that. Someone did mention something to the effect that, now this isn't coming from me, but it's an interesting point that I had seen, was that could he have been planting it, meaning Bradley Wong, just to interfere with things? I mean, he's allegedly, not been super cooperative. I mean, even with the RCMP documents, he wasn't cooperative with law enforcement. He wasn't willing to write down a statement. He said he's willing to talk, but not willing to cooperate, for whatever that means. And so he also said some things that were disputed by the RCMP immediately. That was the crazy thing. So law enforcement, or the Global Mail and Canadian news media come out and say, oh man, we got this guy, Bradley Wong. He's saying that he saw Daniel, Justin Smith, his buddy. The only two people happen to be best friends, come out with these, the only statements in the area of anybody being in that area around are these two best friends that happen to be around there. They're the only two that say they saw something and saw him. RCMP disputes it immediately. They send an email. And the first media outlet that came out with it had to do an edit on it, and that's the one that we found. And then I even told Daniel, I was like, look, dude, the Mail, I think it was a Global Mail, or maybe it was a CBC. I was like, look, they posted this out there that you committed this driving, you were driving around, that you had your lights on, that you were lying, and that you were over there by the blanket situation. Now, it's been determined that they lied. The RCMPs come forward and say that it's not true. Instead of putting a new document or a new headline or a new anything, they just went back and re-edited the old one. And this is a common tactic in the media, especially when they want to put something out there that might make somebody look in a certain way. And for instance, President Trump, beforehand, I mean, probably still to this day, they would put something out about him, like, let's just say that fake Russian dossier. And then later on, instead of saying, oh, you know what, we found out it was fake, they go back to the original article that they had and edit it at some point in that article to say, hey, no, we fixed it. But the thing is, nobody goes back and reads the original article from a long time ago. And so this is a way for the media to go in and control the narrative, say what they want, and then go back and fix it where there's not very many people that are going to be looking. And so that way the narrative that they already put forth already still exists. And so I told Daniel this, and I was like, dude, these people aren't your friends, man. If they're doing this to you and not putting in the right information after the fact, I wouldn't trust them. And then 2 days later, I don't know if he told them something or whatnot, but 2 days later, the big title was RCMP disputes what Bradley Wong and Justin Smith say. And they go on there that they were emailed immediately. So these guys, RCMP jumped on it to say that information is false. And so you may need to question if there's some people that are still sticking with that information, even though the police have said that it's false, what their narrative is to continue to stick to that false information. That's something you should question. If you question it, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, ring that notification. But let's see what else comes out of this.
You all hear that? You guys all hear that okay? I'll play it one more time.
I, Brad Wong, was shown a picture from sunny Austin on December 6th, 2025 at 9:40 p.m. of a blue blanket and sweater, which both belonged to my daughter. We were getting out the house and thought it wouldn't be suitable to be passed down, so it ended up in the burning pile.
So here's a good reason why like some clickbait stuff and not clickbait, but like some false information gets out. What's to talk about the May 2nd, a silver 4-door Honda Civic around 10:45 a.m. A pink shirt. The two folks named that is not strange. The girl claimed to be family from Truro. Oh, never mind. I read this wrong. I thought this said that the person was claiming to be in Truro. And I was like, that's Ron McKenzie, not the McKenzie that they claim. So I read it wrong. My mistake. I read that wrong. I don't know what it is or what it's about, to be honest with you. I know that they did find a pink shirt along the side of the road, and they found another pink blanket also along the side of the road. And they found some water bottles, some socks. I thought they found something else. It's all in my interview with Daniel. He talks about it. None of it was found to be relevant at all. And so take that for what it is. All right, let's continue this.
They only take 4 bags on garbage day.
Okay. So again, they were gutting out the house, cleaning out the house and whatever. And like you said, that they only take 4 bags of garbage or whatever. So it ended up in the burning pile. Again, he doesn't know how it got down Lansdowne Road.
So this was found like kilometers away from his house too. The guy lying about Daniel, about seeing a car, and now there's items of his that, are somewhere down the road. Just kind of seems like, and I'm not saying that Bradley Wong had anything to do with the disappearance. Not at all. In fact, I've not said that at all, ever. In fact, I've said the boot prints kind of eliminate that as a possibility. What I have said is I find it odd. And, you know, I just don't think that I think that the boot prints are the biggest piece of evidence here. They match Lilly. They match her the boots and the tread that she just bought, that they had just bought for her in March, that are missing. And there was 2 of them, and there were a cluster of them, which let's get to where they were located. I want to say thank you to Allie Books for being a member for 15 months, and Pictou Bob coming in with 227 saying happy holidays. Thank you. Appreciate you guys. All right, so that's enough of this. Let's so Brad admits to it. Don't know how his stuff got so far away, but it was his stuff. Go figure. And here is where the cluster of boot prints were found. I actually spelled that wrong. Put location instead of location. I have the M there. Well, anyways, this is the location of where they were found, the exact GPS location. So they were just off the side of this ATV trail. Now, why I think that's important is I strongly suspect that they pulled out of this area right here. So here's where the boot print, where the blanket was found. This blanket is about 1.6 kilometers away. And then I had said if they walked up this road here, entered this open area, and then you have an opening here. Now it's on the inside of the ATV trail. And so meaning that this person, more than likely, so this person, these kids that were walking, they weren't walking inside the ATV trail. They were walking on the inside of it towards the woods here. Kind of an indication that they may have just opened up into the clearing and then came straight along the side. Didn't even get to, not too far out. And so this is where they're at, not on the ATV trail, off to the side. A pretty good distance off to the side. Let's see. And guys, if you guys can't keep it civil, I will start blocking. Let's see. So you have your footprint here. Now, like I said, I didn't know if it was closer to, I had put somewhere around this area just because of this opening. And we're not that far off. How far off am I from that opening? About 200 yards, about 2 football fields away from where that opening is where the footprints were found. Not very far at all. What's going on, Ms. Hall? Ms. Hall says, looking at the map makes me think that the kids are still out in the woods and haven't been found. I completely agree. I actually am going to have a canine unit handlers that are going to be on the show. We're going to aiming for Thursday night, guys. So I'm aiming for Thursday night to have these 2 canine handlers. They were on the show with me and Ryan Finds Truth. Not too long ago, we were talking about the Summer Wells disappearance and the canine units there and what they were doing. I'm going to have them on the channel, and my goal is to be asking them a lot of technical questions like, hey, how does a search affect the dog that's searching for another person and then immediately called and having to leave and go from one place to another? How do they clear their nose, so to speak? Is there, how do people in the driveway affect open air scent dogs? When you're looking for people, how do other searchers affect those type of searches? How does the weather affect it? So many questions that I have for them. They're going to be on Thursday. So please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, ring that notification bell. So you're not going to want to miss that one. That one's going to be a really good one. And I don't know the answer to these questions. I like, what I like to do is I try to be, when I review things, if it's highlighted, that's how you know I've read it before. If it ain't highlighted, I probably haven't read it. And there's a lot of things that I like to do as a reaction and get my real-time response from it. And so I haven't asked them any of these questions. I don't know the answers to any of the questions that I'm going to ask them when it comes to the search dogs and Jack and Lily's case. But I have some ideas of where I want to go and see what they think and what their thoughts of of the search. I want to get their idea of what do you think about the fact that they found the footprints about 1:07 a.m. and then called off the search a short time after that. How could have that changed if they would have continued, to search at that point? What could they have done? There was rain coming down at that point. Would that have interfered with the drones? Is that why they couldn't put up a FLIR at that point, because the rain was coming down? Now, I don't know if he can answer that question or not. And I know they're canine handlers, but that's the goal there, is to get canine there. Cindy Clark says criminal code laws neglect is a criminal offense. Oh, I agree. And, that's why when RCMP says there's no criminal offense, I'm not quick to jump on the fact. I don't argue against it. If somebody wants to say that they were being neglectful, I mean, there's nothing I can say. Parents were responsible for the kids. But, I'm not one to say also, hey, you should arrest them for being neglectful. I've not said that either. And the reason being is because he can't watch kids 24/7. Now, unless, if Daniel and Malaya were strung out on something, that's a different story. That's definitely a different story. If they were strung out and didn't wake up, didn't hear their kids because they were on something, they probably should be in jail 100%. But if they can't, if there's no evidence of that, and, they've done drug tests and things of that nature pretty close to the time when the kids went missing, and they can't, there's no evidence of that, then there's no evidence of that. Doesn't mean that it didn't happen. It's not what it's what you can prove. And so, but, they did say there was no evidence of a criminal offense. That's true. Let's see. All right, I'll answer some of your questions. I'm going to go back up. I don't know if I'm going to have time to do the, I'm not going to do the Vincent Mallory thing tonight. I'm going to watch it first, because I don't know what he's going to say. And he seemed kind of unhinged when I listened to him, and I'm afraid to put it on. And if he says something super crazy, that could get me demonetized or get my channel restricted for something he says. I don't want to take that risk right now, so I'm probably not going to do that. Let's just answer your questions. I'm going to listen to it first. I'm going to watch it first, the whole thing. And if I watch it and I see anything of value, I'll bring it back up to you guys. I don't want to put something out that's not of value, but apparently he knows Brad Wong. That's what somebody told me, that he knows Brad Wong and he knows Justin Smith, and claims that they're all into drugs together or something like that. I have no idea. I've not watched it. I've only seen the part where he said he was making out with a 25-year-old, and I turned it off. But I'm going to go back up a little bit. I'm going to answer your questions, put a couple of stars there so that I know you're talking to me, and we'll go forward from there. Let's see. Do you need to be licensed to be a PI, taking some type of courses, or how to handle evidence found in such? In the United States, yes. Yes. He lives in Lansdowne. I'm assuming you're talking about Mallory, right? Vincent Mallory. This is my first time here. Welcome. Why can Darwood say they were neglected, but everyone else gets deleted? Just on his question, not trying to be rude or disrespectful. Well, it depends on how you say it, too. I've not seen, I'm just looking in, but I do trust my mods. If somebody's being rude and disrespectful, or somebody says, hey, tone it down, then, let's tone it down. Let's see. But if you continue with like only Dirtwood's allowed to make accusations and spam the chat with that, I will take action on that. Let's see. But I've no idea what Dirtwood is saying. What is he saying? I don't see him in here. There he is. I don't think that RCMP wants to know where they are, because if they admit they do, they will be forced to do something they don't want to do, in my opinion. Here's the thing, man. They just went and did a cadaver search, and they brought in dogs from all over the country, right? They brought 2 dogs from different parts of the country, expended a lot of money in service and a lot of money in doing this. I'm pretty sure they're not going to do that if they think it's, the kids are one place or another. I strongly disagree that the kids are outside of anywhere other than the woods. I strongly believe that they wandered off in there. I don't believe that Malaya had some sort of secret plan, or that the reservation CPS had some sort of secret plan, and they went through all this when there's so many, easier ways to do things, especially if you're involving an entity like them. Just don't believe it, don't buy it. I heard recently that supposedly that Malaya wasn't staying at home and she was staying with a boyfriend and all this other stuff. And in reality, she was getting help. She was seeking treatment. Same thing with Daniel. I'd heard recently that supposedly he was going to get arrested for something crazy and that was going to happen within 7 days to 2 weeks or something like that nonsense. And it's been like 4 weeks and there's nothing that's happened. So like every other week or every other day, I hear something else that comes out. Like, oh, I heard that. Like, I think every 4 days I hear that the RCMP is at the sawmill searching around and doing this and doing that. And then I ask people that are working there and it's all nonsense, all complete nonsense. And I'm not saying that's from what Durwood is saying, but I'm just saying that's like so much stuff that is come out from all over the place. That's just nonsense. And even to the point where recently when I said that Daniel was injured, a lot of people jumped the gun and some people started a rumor that he got jumped, that he got beat up. That wasn't the case. He got in an auto accident, a second one. And, guy needs to learn how to drive, in my opinion. But, I'm glad he's okay. It was pretty serious from what I understand from the pictures I saw. Both of them were. And so, it is what it is. I'm not going to share those photos or any of those things because at the end of the day, he really didn't even want me to tell people that he got into an auto accident. But I felt that, so many people were coming up with this, story that he got beat up that I thought it would probably be in the best interest of the truth to tell everybody the truth. Like, hey, that's not the case. And so, yeah, hit the like button. Let's see. But, to me personally, I don't think that they're hiding anything. I mean, even Ground Search and Rescue, Amy Henson, it came out in an interview say, I believe that the kids are out in the woods still, that they got outside of the perimeter. I mean, she said that in an interview. I don't know. But yeah, I don't agree with a lot of things. I mean, the only thing that I agree with, if somebody wants to come out and say that they believe that the kids wandered off into the woods. Is it possible that once the kids wandered further away from the house, they were then kidnapped? So I would say yes, but these footprints being here makes it unlikely. So it's unlikely that there would be anybody just hanging around on the pipeline looking for kids to kidnap or even being there by happenstance. It's very secluded. Now, maybe perhaps if the kids made it way out here to the road somewhere and there was some workers or something of that nature, but if there was people working on the pipeline, I'm sure that the RCMP would have gotten a hold of those folks and see if anybody was supposed to be working that day. It's not like somebody planned for these kids to be out there. It would have been a kidnapping of opportunity. And so they would have been just at their normal day and just so happened to come across these two kids in the middle of nowhere. And then something nefarious happens. Is it possible? I'd give it less than 1% chance, given the fact that the footprints are here. The footprints were somewhere else. One, I'd be more open to the idea that the footprints were planted. Not saying necessarily that they would have been had we found footprints here. But the fact that they're in the middle of nowhere makes them less likely to be planted, less likely to be some sort of red herring or anything like that, because there wouldn't be any purpose of that. Now, a lot of people say that Daniel or Daniel's family may have been the ones that planted the blanket. Well, they would have also had to come out here and plant the footprints too. And in order to do so, one, they would have to get out there, get into the mud and plant the cluster, which is a group of footprints and, a small cluster group of footprints onto the ground without leaving their own prints in the mud, and then have to traverse either all the way back to the street here or all the way back to the trail here without leaving any evidence of their own presence being there. I just don't think it's likely. I think that these boot prints here, they're the right size. There's two of them. They're for kids. They're the right boots, that they're the exact boot pattern that were bought for Lilly just a couple of weeks earlier, down to the size that was on the tread pattern. And so, to me, it's more than like 90% possible. I'm more than 90% sure that those boot prints belong to Jack and Lilly. And given how far away they were from the house, it's not like a print that, like, for instance, when I talk about the Summer Wells case, there's some boot prints, or there's some bare footprints there. The only thing that makes me hesitant about those bare footprints, not bare as in bare as in BARE, like without shoes. The only reason I believe is because there's some other footage of Summer running around barefooted in the woods and stuff like that, playing in the yard, playing in the rain, barefooted, all these things. Dawn and Candace say it's not abnormal for her to be barefoot. One of the properties that found her prints on was a property that was, I believe, was a related. They were related, and it was close by. So I wouldn't be surprised if she, went from one property to the other. If all of them did at certain points, barefooted or not. And the other print was less than a quarter mile away. So they were fairly close to where she lived. This one is, I think, like almost 3 kilometers away. And so it's a good distance away for a 6 and a 4-year-old to be by themselves, and that don't go hiking or anything like that. That was the other thing between these two kids and Summer was kind of used to being out there in the wilderness and things of that nature. It didn't sound like that was the case for Jack and Lilly. And so take that for what it is. But do I think it's possible that they got kidnapped afterwards? Maybe. According to the live a few nights ago with Travers, a witness says that they seen Jenna Jowdry coming out of the woods in a pink blanket and Alvin McKenzie. Yeah, but I don't even know how accurate that is. I don't know if she was actually out there. I don't think she was. This was the first day. I've heard that rumor. I just don't think it's true. I'll be honest with you. I think it's not true at all. Let's see. There's a reason RCMP MCU is saying it's not a criminal. It's a missing persons case. I agree. I 100% agree. Let's see. But, at the end of the day, the RCMP documents, they speak volumes. They speak volumes. They talk about the lengths that they went to investigate Malay and Daniel. And they talk about the lengths they went to investigate the boot prints. They talk about how they went between May 3rd and May 27th, 29th, somewhere around there, or May 30th, that they were investigating these boot prints. They were trying to figure out if it was plausible that they were Jack and Lily's. And immediately in that investigation, right off the bat, Malaya says that she doesn't believe that they were, because she thought that Lilly wore a size 13, not a size 11. And so when they went to look at her financial records, and they looked and they found that she had purchased these boots back in March, they checked the SKU code, and it determined that it was actually a size 11 and the same boot print that was the same boot that would have left the same tread pattern in the print. And so Malaya was wrong. So they could have easily taken her word for it and say, oh, okay, well, it's not theirs. And, let's chalk it up as a nothing burger. But no, they went the extra mile to investigate it, to determine whether or not it was plausible. And so what does that mean? That means that they probably also went to talk to other people that were searching and asking, did your kids go out there? Do you kids own these type of boots? Where are y'all on this part of the pipeline? The answer probably was no. Because if they're investigating it to that degree, it's not going to take very much for them to go out there. And then the second thing is that we also have to figure is that if somebody took their kids out there to go and search, they are aware of the kids missing and fairly close to when they went missing, right? So they would have been part of the area, close-knit community. They probably are informed. They probably know about this case. Obviously, if they're looking that early on, why haven't they come forward and said, no, those boot prints belong to my kids? You get what I'm saying? So nobody else has come forward either. Knowing the amount of controversy and the amount of issues that these prints hold, if, I would assume that if they're out there looking day one, that they really care for Jack and Lilly, be looking for them. Why not come forward and say those are ours? So the fact that they didn't, the fact that they matched 2 kids, the fact that they're in the middle of nowhere and the RCMP documents indicate that they're out of the way, and the fact that they match so closely, so perfectly to what Lilly is missing. Like those boots are missing. It'd be another thing if they found them at Daniel's house, not with mud, right? If they found them clean, they're like, all right, well, obviously this is somebody else's. But those are also the boots that are missing. So, once you apply all those details together, it makes it very difficult to believe that they belong to somebody else. All right, I'll answer a few more questions, guys. A few more questions. Where is the nearest body of water on the cliff near the footprints? Oh, that's a good question. I know that there's a body of water down here. This is Jenna Lake, and there's some rivers that run, waterways that run off of it. So here's the Sutherland Brook Creek. It comes over here. I don't know if there's any waterways here or not. As far as cliffs go, I'm not sure. Now, we had a 57-page document that I was reading that a viewer had sent in with me and that we'd been working on. It's 95% hers, 5% my information that, I was telling her where the boot prints were and those type of things. But majority of it was her. And one of the things that she had found was that 49% of autistic kids go missing. And some of the things to look for when you're looking for autistic kids is they're going to follow like open areas. They're not going to go into the brush as much. They're going to want an open sky, which if you look at the path at which they would have had to have taken to have gotten to the blanket and to the boot prints, that's exactly what they did. They stuck to the open areas and turned down an open area and continued under open areas. And so in the document indicated that most, autistic kids, when they go missing, they stay near the linear path. Most of them are found within 50 meters from the opening area of where they were traveling. So 50 meters to the south, 50 meters to the north. And, that's where they're most likely found. They can be found within 100 meters and up to 200. However, it's unlikely for 200, especially beyond. So 200 meters past the open linear area. And so let's put this like right here. This is the open area. That's yards. Let me change that from yards to meters. And so that's 141 meters, 600 or 163. So about 200 meters right here. So this is the maximum to one direction that you can go. And then this will be about right here on the other side. And you would want to search everywhere in between here on both sides of the open area, going probably in this direction. I think she mentioned there was an obstacle like several miles, like about maybe a mile down the road or 2 miles down the road, somewhere around here. And so it's a long ways to look. And you want to also check every one of these clearings because they're going to want to, they could have turned down any of these clearings. But this is the open area that you would expect to find them in, from one way to the other, all the way down. So it's like this and everything in between. And so this would be one area just along the pipeline, like that, all the way through. And so it's a lot of area to search. And very easily somebody can get lost in that. But water, I'd have to see if anything goes across. Let's see. Please hit the like button, guys. If you're listening to this on the audio side, give us a 5-star rating. I'd appreciate it. Okay, I thought Chrissy Travers said that the other night that Alvin was in a silver sedan and Jenna was in a different vehicle, hanging out the back window. They're saying they came out of the woods. I don't know how true it is. I'll be honest with you. I mean, at the end of the day, if it was around 11 o'clock, 10:45, this is when people would have been notified that the kids were missing. Would it be weird for people to be coming out of the woods looking for the kids in the area? I don't think so. And so it's just, I don't know. Let's get the like buttons. What's up, Sirius? Good to see you. Good to see you. So what about the socks and the bloody underwear found at the Gairloch Brook Falls? Never mentioned in the court docs. Why that's on Lair Road next to the church. Amy Hansen took the location coordinates. The socks and underwear, I'm assuming that they did some DNA on it and figured that they weren't connected. See, we're never going to hear about things that aren't connected. Like when I covered the Brian Koberger case and people were saying, this person or that person, I was like, we're never going to find out, what it was that cleared them. We're not going to find out anything unless they come forward after the fact and say something. Reason being is because at the end of the day, and somebody gets arrested, it's their trial. It's the evidence against them. And in this scenario here, we're not going to find out about evidence that isn't relevant. So if they found a sock and underwear and all this other stuff, and they went in and they found DNA on it and they checked it to match with the DNA of Jack and Lilly, they're not going to come forward and say, hey, this was a nothing burger. It's, we'll be lucky at this point we find out something that is relevant. Now, I think that if it's something that becomes a question where people are asking constantly and the media starts questioning it, maybe at that point, law enforcement will come out and say, no, this is irrelevant. I think that's why law enforcement comes out when they say that they've cleared people, kind of like in the Brian Koberger case, when they cleared Jack DeCore, Jack Showalter, Adam, the private driver, the hoodie guy, all the other guys that were involved, was because there was constant question. Law and Order TV was constantly questioning the hoodie guy and what their actions were. There was so much stuff, so that forced the hand of police to come out and say that, no, they're not, we don't believe that they're responsible. Kind of why to a certain extent, I believe that RCMP have come out with their documents with explaining that Daniel and Malaya, they don't believe they're responsible or have had committed a criminal offense, mainly because of the constant question and maybe even the thought that RCMP isn't doing enough. So RCMP said, all right, you guys want to say we ain't doing enough? This is what we've done to show, and this is how we tried to see if they were guilty and what the result was. Some people can't handle the truth. Let's see. I'm not fake, Darren. I have an open Facebook and I've messaged you also. Oh, no, you're not talking to me. I thought you were talking to me. I was like, I'm not sure what you're talking about. I think the bare footprints and boots lead me to guess they were running, hiding from scary sounds. The only thing is that the bare footprint, that wasn't real. So there was only 2 boot prints and there were 2 different sizes. There was not a third footprint. I know that there was a stock photo that was shared that had a third print. That was an inaccurate representation of what was out there. That was just a stock photo, but there was no 3 prints. There was just 2. I'm going to scroll through this fairly quickly and see if there's anything that sticks out. Someone said around dark, the kids should be crying, and in the area, the sound would be traveled. I don't know, dense woods and things like that. Sound doesn't travel through dense woods. So if they get inside the dense aspect of the woods, which, like, I know what the article said, that kids don't go into the woods or whatever, but there's a possibility that they got ran into the woods. Maybe an animal came out, they got scared, went into it, or an obstacle got in the way and they had to go into the woods. If they got into the woods and there's a significant amount of foliage and trees and the woods are as dense as they say they are, sound is just going to bounce back at the kids instead of going out. I think MBM shows sign of having Asperger's herself, high functioning autism. I don't know. I have no idea. I've never spoken with her. I've never, I'm not a doctor either, and so I wouldn't have no idea. With Daniel, I have a daughter that has ADHD. I see some of this. Like, I feel like he has ADHD, and he said it himself. He does. RCMP went to the individual who found it and claimed they had lost it. Seems very strange. Let's see. Oh, I'm all the way down. So this will be the last one. I paid privately for a diagnosis for ADHD, LD, etc. And one of my children decades ago. It was expensive, but worth it. Most schools take long. Gotcha. All righty. Well, guys, that's gonna do it for me tonight. Please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, ring that notification bell, guys. You guys know what to do. Again, we're going to continue to put out information until answers are found in the Jack and Lilly case. I'm going to be back on Thursday night in reference to this case. I think that's the preliminary date. We haven't locked it in yet. I'll be back on tomorrow night for sure, talking about either this case and or the Summer Wells case. And I think there's some other stuff that's kind of popping that's brand new that I might be going into and discussing as well. So stick with us. Like, comment, subscribe, because I'm gonna be on tomorrow, and then Thursday I'm planning on having the K9 crew on the channel so that we can get some information about, what we should have expected out of the search. What were some of the possible things that maybe hindered the search, and what are things that maybe would have made the search more successful, and what we should question. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, ring that notification bell. You guys know what to do. I'll be back on tomorrow night, guys. See y'all then. Peace out.